Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Toolbox Tuesday. Today, we're going to talk about defining a modern health and safety system. I am your host, Kieran Greening. I'm a safety advisor with the association. I represent a few different regions. I work west of Saskatoon to the Macklin area, east of Saskatoon in the Humboldt area, temporarily right now in the Prince Albert region and the greater Saskatoon area. If you're in any one of those areas, be sure to contact the SCSA and ask for me. So without further ado, we'll get started on the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. So here's the presentation, like I said, defining a modern safety system. So we're going to discuss what a contemporary system is and how it can benefit a company. So the top one, it asks the question, what is a safety system and why do we have one? So common question. So a safety system is a grouping of policies, procedures, and potentially some rules that reflect the company's mission statement, their values, and it implies synergy. So this means that the whole program together works better as a whole than it does as any sort of individual item could. So there's definitely more than a few reasons that a company would implement and enforce a health and safety program. Some of the major ones are lowering injury costs, claim costs, decreasing man hours lost to those injuries, meeting accident rates that have set out for pre-bidding requirements. Some pre-bids require core potentially, and as well as other safety items. So having a system in place puts you in a higher standing in certain scenarios. So when we're thinking about cause and effect, we want to think about what the safety program is and the other numerous benefits. Morale of workers, for example. If we have workers that are happy about going to work, they're not worried about getting injured, they're not worried about their coworker safety. We have people at home, we have families, we want to get home. I know if we get a cut on our finger, it's a slight inconvenience, but getting hurt at work in any sort does affect our daily lives. And our loved ones, they do worry about things like that when we're at work and potentially, especially if it's dangerous. So these are all valid reasons to operate a health and safety system. It's worth mentioning that not all costs with a safety system are going to immediately affect the return on investment or the bottom line. And that's often the driving force behind a health and safety system. So not everything is going to have an immediate impact, but overall, it will save a company money and time. So before we get into what a contemporary system is, we have to define the other side, what a traditional management system is. So it refers to a management style that's a little bit older. Older generations used to be a big part of it, where the manager has the brains, the worker may have the brawn, but the worker's here to work. You put your time in and you go home. So this management style is used to this day in different areas. So if we take a look at what that entails, it might be developed and imposed from a top down. So professional managers, employees may distrust employees' ideas, not maybe take it for granted, think employees here to work, why would I listen to them? They hired me to manage those people. Can be slow and resistant to change in the sense that change can be bad, and we can't do it if we're not the one in command of it. So it's maintained through authoritarian command and control, which means that if you have a duty that's reasonable, you must do exactly as commanded. Good saying, if I tell you to jump through the hoops, that is what I expect you to do. So what's a downfall of that system? We're going to use a reference to a book here. So Belasco and Stayer describe the old leadership paradigm in Flight of the Buffalo, soaring to excellence, learning to let employees lead, using an analogy between the relationship of a buffalo herd. So in a buffalo herd, one buffalo is the leader. We'll call him the head buffalo. The herd waits for that person or buffalo's decision to direct their course and continue when they want to feed, when they want to run. So if that head buffalo is attacked or killed, the herd will not take initiative to flee without the leader. So their loyalty and their submission to that leader can act as a downfall because they don't become self-directed. They're not responsible for their day-to-day tasks. They're responsible to listen, and that's all they're there to do. So This analogy illustrates the loss of critical thinking when one or more people or only one group of people are responsible for something. So that kind of crosses the hairs of what is a modern safety system. So a modern safety system is not exactly the opposite, but um, it's the management style that is paramount to that success. So truly giving workers a voice within the company speaks volumes to retention of smart and productive workers. If we're a worker and we're frustrated with how things are managed, potentially one thing we can do is leave if we're not heard, or if we're not heard out for our opinions, or for an example in safety, if the hazards we constantly report keep going unnoticed, and we're writing it down on a piece of paper so that it's due diligence, but it's not due diligence if we don't do anything about it. So a modern safety system works with the idea that every worker is smart, they come to work, they're responsible, motivated, and when empowered, they can be huge contributors to many company decisions. So in today's construction environment, safety can't be fully delegated to one individual. You might have the title of a safety professional, but your role is to organize the safety program, to give people responsibility, to oversee, to ensure that things are running. So that's part of the control part of management. So workers have to be trained to be able to be delegated upon in that sense. So modern safety system can be referred to as an internal responsibility system, which is a common phrase in the industry. Safety. So in this approach, every person within an organization has responsibility for health and safety. They might not have all the responsibility. They might have certain tasks that they have to do. They might even have a program that's run underneath them. So when you're developing key components, you want to consider considering all the stakeholders. So all the people in the company, take all their opinions, get the people who are closest to the hazards to assess, to control hazards, give them the responsibility to go purchase. If there's a hole in the ground that they need to cover up, give them the ability to go and do that and take responsibility on site. Giving them that responsibility will empower them a little bit. So we want to share ideas, we want to give feedback regardless of what level are. We want to have a system where people are comfortable reporting incidents. We don't want to have people who are scared to be punished if they report something. So we need a program that's going to adapt to the changing needs and that's going to be in for continuous improvement. So that's what a modern safety system is. And an achievement of these outcomes can only come through motivated and empowered employees. So we're going to use another analogy. So another animal, out there in the ecosystem of Belasco and Stayer, they discuss dynamics as a flock of geese. So when flying south for the winter, geese fly in that V shape, and it's pretty well known in Saskatchewan. We look up in the sky, oftentimes there are geese flying. We see them in the V, and we wonder why. So the lead goose has the task of breaking the wind for the rest of them to make their lives a little bit easier. But what's unique compared to the buffalo, that lead goose doesn't stay the same. Once the guy at the front gets tired, he goes to the back, and the next one steps up and takes his place. And that's a leader mentality. Even if you're not an authority figure within the company, you don't hold the power. Potentially, you hold the power to help your coworkers out. And every goose in this formation is as pivotal as the guy at the front, because he or she does the work for a short period of time and then delegates it to another. So we want to look at stuff like this in the contemporary model and just think about the outcomes of having a safety program, a system, management system where everyone matters, everyone's voice is heard, and everyone has their opinions that are heard, but potentially we can't use all the opinions is another thing to keep in mind. So empowerment has three essential pieces: opportunity, ability, and motivation. If we have the ability to do something, such as cover the hole, we need to be trained to do that. So potentially we got to look at the legislation. What do we have to know before we have to do the task? We need to know that has to be covered by a material that can handle so much weight per square inch. So we have to find out, and we can ask the questions, we can phone, and then potentially if there's a formal training program, we want to utilize it. And part of the supervisor's role, the manager, is to ensure that these things are being done on a daily basis or as soon as it's plausible. So to do with safety, like I said, we must be trained to recognize all the risks we may encounter in a day at work. So if we take proper lifting into it as an example, if we teach people to lift, they might lift once and go back to the other way. So we have to maintain that. We have to give people opportunity to participate in the program as well. If we give them the training and then we say, nope, you have to call this person to come and do it, then you're never going to have the responsibility to take pride in that. So filling first aid kit logs, you might assign a worker who's not a supervisor, who's not a lead hand, he's not any of those things, and you want to give them the opportunity to take that and have that be his program or her program. So, and then we have the question, what motivates workers? And this is a hot topic debate. Some people will be motivated by financial, monetary things. Some people want feedback. They want to be recognized that they've done these things. So we want to make sure we include them on how to empower people. So motivation's different. We want to talk about this internal responsibility system. So workers generally want to share their thoughts. They want to be heard. They have good ideas. They're smart people. Gone are the days where workers are simply a hands. We don't want to say that a person is just here for their skill set. They are skilled workers, but they're also smart workers. So we got to take that into account. And that's why we must delegate important hazard assessments, different parts of the safety program. We want to have people on the job trained, even if they aren't a supervisor, but ensure they're competent. We want to make sure that workers can essentially run the day-to-day paperwork operations so that someone isn't micromanaging. Everyone will feel better in that situation as well. And the biggest part of having a contemporary system is having management be 100% committed to the system. If we don't have management commitment at the top, we're not going to have it throughout the organization. If we see the manager or the supervisor, or we see someone with more pull in the company show up to site without a hard hat, without boots, the workers are going to take it upon themselves to not follow the rules because someone higher up in the company isn't as well. So we want to make sure that everything is a fair and considerate program. So we can incentivize motivation, So we want to have people on board, of course, but there must be attention paid to these incentives. The reward shouldn't be something that workers have enough of already. We don't want to feed people who are already full. It doesn't work. They won't like it. So we want to include stakeholders. We want to include people. What do you want to see as an incentive? A lot of the time it will be monetary, but small, different rewards, stuff that's fun. If you have clear, concise, and consistently given across the board rewards, people will start to want them more. Even if it's an award or something that doesn't have any value, but it's bragging rights. You can do so many different things to motivate workers. It just has to be right for your company. So I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Toolbox Talk Tuesday. We're going to continue doing these. Look for the webinar Wednesdays. They're no longer happening every week, but we do have one a month for the next little bit here. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Tuesday.